Okay, what's up? And welcome back to another episode of A to Z Sports. And this is my 2021 NCAA March Madness bracket. And in this episode of A to Z Sports, we'll be breaking down my bracket and how I picked it and why I picked it that way. But before we get into the 2021 NCAA men's basketball tournament predictions, make sure to like this video and subscribe to A to Z Sports so you don't miss out on any A to Z content. And so we're going to be breaking down this bracket, how I filled it out. First, I'm going to be looking at the West Division. Going to bring that out all the way to the Final Four finalists. Then we're going to be looking at the East Division, then followed by South and Midwest divisions. So looking at the number one overall seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs, I've got them winning this first matchup pretty easily, being 26-0 going into this tournament. The only undefeated team in the nation. They'll either face Norfolk State or Appalachian State. I don't think it matters which one of them wins the play-in game. Gonzaga's going to beat either one. And I think they're going to move on to face Oklahoma, the winner of the Oklahoma-Missouri game. That's the 8 seed versus the 9 seed. Oklahoma being the 8th seed. And I think they barely pull this one out. Missouri actually has a slightly better record, but I think the competition that Oklahoma had to play in the Big 12 was just slightly better than Missouri's schedule and the SEC. And so I think Oklahoma edges out this matchup. And then moving down, we've got number 5 Creighton versus number 12 UCSB. And I've got Creighton winning this one. They play in a very tough conference, the Big East. They're a very respected basketball conference. And they get to play against Villanova, Xavier, UConn. UConn is in the American Conference. But definitely the competition in the Big East is helpful to them. And I do think that they edge out UCSB in this matchup. And they'll move on to play Virginia, the winner of the Virginia-Ohio game. That's number 4 versus number 13. And Virginia actually the defending champs, since there was not a tournament last season, but 2 seasons ago they were the team who cut down the nets at the end of the season. And so I've got Virginia moving on. And then next team I've got USC, who will play the 11th seed. That's either going to be Wichita State or Drake, depending on who wins the play-in game. But I do have USC winning this matchup. They actually have one of the more impressive records in the tournament. They're 22-7, and playing in the Pac-12, there's actually some pretty good basketball up there. So seeing what they've been able to do and earning the 6th seed, I think they'll be able to take home this game and then move on to play Kansas, who is the number 3 seed, and I think winning pretty handily against 14 Eastern Washington. All right, moving down to the last couple teams in the West Division. We've got VCU edging out Oregon in the first upset I picked in this tournament. VCU being number 10, Oregon 7th. And I think VCU wins this matchup. And moving on to play number 2, Iowa. Iowa has one of the best players in the nation in Luka Garza. He's a tall center that can basically do it all. He can post up, shoot threes, gets a double-double about every single game. But yeah, so Iowa made a deep run in the Big Ten tournament, not quite able to bring it home. But yeah, they've got some great shooters on that team, and I think they've got a chance to make a good run in this tournament. All right, going back up to the top of the bracket, in that Gonzaga Oklahoma game, that both teams moved on from the first round. I've got Gonzaga winning this game. I think it'll be just a tad closer than most people think it will be, just because Oklahoma is just one of the better teams in the Big 12, which is a very competitive conference. Gonzaga actually has beaten some very, very good teams this year. I'm going to be getting into that later. So when they get into tougher competition, I'll explain why they'll still be able to win those, because they've actually played some really tough teams this year and come out on top. And so I think they'll actually move on to play Creighton in the Sweet 16. I think Creighton is just a more complete team than Virginia. Virginia really looked not quite as good as they were in their championship season. Their defense is definitely still very, very good under Coach Tony Bennett, who's a great defensive-minded coach. And I have Creighton winning this matchup and then being able to play against Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. And then, of course, Kansas versus USC, that's number 3 versus number 6. That should be a competitive game, because USC, Pac-12, which is actually a very good basketball conference. But I think Kansas edges them out. Kansas definitely rebuilt a little bit from where they were a couple seasons ago, losing in the second round of the NCAA tournament. But here they are, they're back. They move on, beating USC, and they advance to the Sweet 16, or they'll play Iowa, who I think will dominate VCU. They're just a lot bigger team, they've got better shooters, and yeah, they move on to play Kansas. Alright, so Creighton versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga, of course, being undefeated, hasn't lost anyone. Creighton's good, but definitely not good enough to beat Gonzaga. And Gonzaga moves on to the Elite Eight. Their second trip in the last 5 years to the Elite Eight. They're always really in the title mix in March Madness. And so, yeah, they're going to make a deep run. And who I think they'll be facing off against in the Elite Eight will be Iowa. Because Iowa, I think this is about as far as they'll be able to ride Luka Garza. He's a good enough player. Will he be able to take over a game? Yes, I think he can. And good enough to beat Iowa? Yes. They have other players that they can go to, but definitely Garza will have to have a big game. And I think he pulls it out against his Kansas team, who is one of the most respected programs in the sport. And so, yes, it'll be Gonzaga versus Iowa, but this is as far as Luka Garza takes them. He runs on into Jalen Suggs and the rest of this Gonzaga team, which is very solid. Suggs has a chance to win the Wooden Award this year. If you don't know what that is, it's awarded to the best college basketball player in the nation. And so, yeah, Gonzaga advances to the Final Four again. We've seen them in this position before. They did advance in 2017 against North Carolina in the championship game, but they eventually lost in a close game to that very good Carolina team. And so, yeah, from the West Division, we've got Gonzaga in the Final Four. Moving down to the East Division, looking at the first game, number 1 Michigan taking on either Mount St. Mary's or Texas Southern. And as the 1 seed, I don't have any 16 seeds beating 1 seeds. I know we saw that a couple seasons ago, but that's the first time it's ever happened, and I don't see it happening again in this tournament. So Michigan moves on to play LSU, who takes the win over St. Bonaventure, who actually didn't play that many games this season. They only gotten 20 games. LSU has a more impressive record at 18-9, and made it to the SEC championship, where they eventually lost a close game to the Alabama Crimson Tide, who was ranked 6th this season, the best SEC team out there, and looking like a very, very tough contender. They're also in the same division. We'll get down to their game and a couple picks. And another upset, as number 5 Colorado, who's 22-8, which is a very impressive record, falls to number 12 Georgetown, who's only 13-12. So this pick seems a little funny. Honestly, I don't have too much logic behind it. I just feel like Georgetown is going to win from what I've seen from them this season. Colorado is good, but I think this is one of the upsets we'll just see in March Madness, because really you can't always go with the obvious pick. Sometimes you got to go with what your gut says and some stuff that most people don't look at. So yeah, I've got Georgetown moving on to Florida State, who lost to Georgia Tech in the ACC championship. The ACC's really fallen off from once being the best conference. Now they're a so-so conference with some of their heavy hitters not even making it this year, such as Duke, the Blue Devils, who we normally see every single year. The absence of them and Kentucky are 2 blue blood schools that we're used to seeing every single year in the tournament, but not able to pull it out. It was kind of sad. Duke's tournament in the ACC got canceled because of COVID, and I thought they had a chance to make a run to win, which would have got them into this tournament, but they fell just short after they tested positive for COVID, so we're not going to see Duke in the tournament this year. Alright, so moving on to my next game, I've got BYU taking the win over either Michigan State or UCLA. I believe it'll be Michigan State, but still BYU. He was looked very impressive this year at 20-6. Move on to play Texas, one of the better teams in the Big 12, which I said is one of the more solid teams out there. Conferences, the Big 12 definitely is one of the tougher conferences. They got 7 teams in. That's tied with the SEC. The Big 10 had the most with 9. We've got the SEC and Big 12 at 7. And so definitely those 3 conferences left their mark on the tournament selection. And number 7 UConn, who is historically one of the better teams that we see in the tournament every year. They have won in the 21st century. I think back in 2009. But yeah, so I do have Maryland winning though, just because of the wins they were able to get. They were able to get 16 wins in the Big Ten. And so I think some of these Big Ten schools out there where they have to play Iowa and Michigan and Ohio State and Illinois in some of their regular games, just some of the better teams in this tournament who are from the Big Ten, it'll look a little worse because of the competition they'll have to play against. So yeah, I've got Maryland taking it over UConn, and then moving on to play Alabama, who, like I said, 24-6 SEC champions, very impressive. Yeah, so I've got them winning pretty easily against Iona, who only played 17 games and was ranked 15th. So that's number 2 Alabama against number 10 Maryland. You've got number 3 Texas versus number 6 BYU, number 4 Florida State versus number 12 Georgetown, and then number 8 LSU versus number 1 Michigan. We're gonna look at that game first. Michigan, who fell just short. They were ranked the number 1 team in the Big Ten tournament, but fell short to Ohio State by 1 point. And so that was a setback for them, but having only lost 4 games is definitely one of the most impressive records in the whole tournament. They're facing off against LSU, who lost in the championship game to Alabama. I think LSU will put up a good fight, but Michigan, I think, takes this game and plays Florida State, who I think will be Georgetown, who barely squeaked it out against Colorado, and so Florida State, who got second in the ACC championship. That's who I think they're likely to play. And then moving down to that BYU versus Alabama game, BYU is a very tough team, and they made it to the finals against Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference tournament. They lost by 10, so not a terrible victory, but they did get beat pretty bad. So BYU is a very tough team, ranked 23rd in the nation in the last polls we saw, but Alabama does take it home as they're ranked 6th in the nation. So definitely, I trust Alabama to get this win. And then face off against Michigan, and then number 1 Michigan versus number 2 Alabama. I've got the upset, Alabama punching their ticket to the Final Four. And I'm just looking up when Alabama's last Final Four was. So this is going to be a big win for Alabama, playing the SEC, beating a big Big Ten name in Michigan. And so Michigan's got some good players. They've got a lot of size, some big dudes. They do have one guy injured right now. So they're playing down a man, and so it appears that Alabama has never had a Final Four appearance. So looks like this year could be their first one. I think they're the best team in this East Division, and I think beating Michigan, ranked the best team out of the Big Ten, is going to be Alabama's first Final Four appearance from the SEC, and they'll move on to face Gonzaga in the Final Four. We'll get to that game in just a couple minutes. First, we're going to go over to the South Division. If you're following on your bracket, it'll be right up here. And the number 1 seeded Baylor in this division, number 2 overall, I think will beat Hartford, who is 15-8, so not a terrible team. But Baylor, who's 22-2, was supposed to win the Big 12 title, which I said is a very tough conference, but they came up short to West Virginia, and so I actually don't have them going very far in this tournament. The farthest I have them making is actually the Sweet 16. And the reason for that being is that they look good all season, but I think now how good they are is not looking super good actually, because of how they looked against West Virginia. So yeah, I have them moving on playing Wisconsin, who 9 seed versus 8 seed, Wisconsin number 9 beating number 8 North Carolina. And yes, North Carolina's got a little bit better record, but Wisconsin from the Big Ten has to play some tougher teams. So yes, I think this is a big win for Wisconsin, moving on to play Baylor. And then Villanova, we've seen them win a couple championships recently, 2 in the last 5 years. Beating Winthrop, number 12, who actually only has 1 loss. So they have a very good record. And Villanova doesn't have as many star players as they used to. Still have a good system, good coach. So this could be a good win for them. Purdue, I think, number 4 versus number 13, North Texas. I think they edge it out. They're ranked 4th in the Big Ten, but was not able to win in overtime against Ohio State, one of the better teams from the Big Ten. So 18-9 Purdue will move on against Villanova. Lower half of the bracket, we've got Texas Tech, number 6, I think wins against Utah State. Utah State's got a pretty good record, but Texas Tech playing in the Big 12, I think will be tough to beat. And then they'll play Arkansas from the SEC, 22-6, a very impressive looking record there. I think comes up on top against Colgate, who only played 15 games. They're 14-1. So this could be a good win for the SEC. I think Arkansas goes pretty deep, makes it to the Sweet 16. but we'll get upended by team I'll reveal in just a second. Another upset, number 10, Virginia Tech winning over number 7, Florida. Florida was 14-9, so honestly, not that much higher above 500. Virginia Tech, I think, playing out of the ACC, is actually one of the better teams in the ACC this year, and I think can make this one game win before running to Ohio State, number 2 in this Southern Division, against Oral Roberts, who's 16-10, number 15 seed. I think Ohio State wins that pretty easily. From what we've seen in the Big Ten tournament, they're back on par what we've seen most of the season. Towards the end of the regular season, Ohio State seemed to be falling off just a little bit, but came on strong and eventually lost in overtime to Illinois in the Big Ten championship. Back up to the top of the bracket, we got Baylor versus Wisconsin. Baylor going to win that game. I think Purdue edges it out against Villanova. That's number 4 versus number 5. A lot of people have Villanova winning that game, but I think Purdue's size with freshman Zeke, he's 7'4", one of the tallest college players in the nation. They've got a great backcourt with Jaden Ivey and freshman Newman. I think they can pull off this game and win the fast break game against Villanova. Moving down, I think Arkansas takes it over Texas Tech. This was a game I was looking up maybe to pick Texas Tech. The Red Raiders have been very good in recent years, but Arkansas's dominance this year led me to believe that they'd get the win. And then, of course, Ohio State beating Virginia Tech, I think pretty handily. Ohio State's going to be a very tough team to beat. I've got them going out pretty far. Next game, I've actually got Purdue upsetting number 1 seed in the South, Baylor. I think it'll be a close game. I could see it being up to 7 points. I think Baylor is just a much more vulnerable team, has some weaknesses that people aren't expecting. Purdue, if they play a good game, definitely is going to be able to beat Baylor. If they play a bad game, Baylor could beat them. But I think Purdue, if they get on their game and play strong, I think they can take down Baylor. And that's going to be an exciting game to watch if Purdue and Baylor meet in the Sweet 16. Moving down, Ohio State, number 2, taking down number 3, Arkansas. That's going to be Big Ten versus SEC, 2 of the better conferences in this tournament. Ohio State, though, they don't have much size. They have some very, very athletic guards and some guys who can shoot the ball, some big men who can shoot the ball, which makes it tough on some other opponents. All right, the Elite 8 of the South, we've got Purdue versus Ohio State. 2 tough Big Ten teams, but Ohio State, too tough for Purdue. I think they edge Purdue out. Purdue actually beat Ohio State twice in the regular season, but Ohio State was able to get the best of them in overtime in the Big Ten tournament. So Purdue's actually got some good wins against multiple top schools in the Big Ten. So definitely the quality of wins led me to believe that Purdue would go this far. And then, so beating Purdue, Ohio State punches its ticket to the Final Four, who will face off against the winner of the Midwest Division. It's the last one I'm going to look at. We're going to get to that in a second. And then move on to my Final Four and championship prediction. I'll give you the score, all that stuff. And let me know what you think in the comments once we get through all this stuff. Let me know if your bracket was any different, what you thought about my predictions, and whether you think I was right or not. It's okay to tell me that I was completely wrong, because I've already gotten some of that from my friends at school. So yeah, see how that goes. Last division, the Midwest Division, number 1, Illinois, who just come off the Big Ten victory. We'll move on after being Drexel to play Georgia Tech, the ACC tournament champion, who's going to beat Loyola Chicago. Georgia Tech actually ranked 9th, even though they were the ACC champion. Loyola Chicago, 24-4, and we've actually been used to seeing them in the tournament. And I think 2 March Madnesses ago, they actually did make it to the Final Four and almost was able, one of the best NCAA March Madness tournament runs I've ever seen. Almost was able to beat Michigan in the semifinal, but Michigan was able to pull it out when they had Mo Wagner. He was a very good player. Actually, his brother playing for Michigan now, also a big man. So enough of that. We're going to move on. Tennessee, I think, edges out Oregon State. It's number 5 versus number 12. Actually, it's not uncommon to see number 12 seeds take down number 5 seeds. But it is Tennessee, who is a very good program, historically known for their basketball coming out of the SEC. It's Tennessee. Moving on to play Oklahoma State. Also a surprise from the Big 12 this year. I did not expect them to be as good as they've turned out to be. Cade Cunningham leading the way for them. Oftentimes, he'll hit over 30 points, and he's just a lethal scorer and can do it all for them. And moving on, another upset, number 11 Syracuse. I've got taken down. Number 6 San Diego State, who only has 4 losses, but the conference that San Diego State plays in leaves me to believe that Syracuse, who also is another historically good basketball program, will be able to win this game and move on to play West Virginia, who I believe won the Big 12 championship. Let me check up on that real quick. But yeah, West Virginia is always a very good team. They can basically just do it all against any team. I think they'll be able to shut down Syracuse. So I'm looking at this right now. They actually did not win the Big 12 tournament. They lost to Oklahoma State in the first round of that. So I got wrong actually earlier in my video who Baylor lost to. Yeah, it was Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State is beating some of the better teams in the Big 12. Baylor and then West Virginia. So that leads me to believe that Oklahoma State takes down Tennessee and will play Illinois in the Sweet 16. Yeah, so I was talking about West Virginia. Those are the two teams. West Virginia takes down Syracuse, and then we'll play, I believe, Houston after Rutgers comes out and beats Clemson. That's an upset, 10-7. Rutgers actually has 3 very good players. Ron Harper Jr., they got Geo Baker, and another player that's actually slipping my mind right now. Should remember that. But yeah, they've got 3 very good players on Rutgers. I think they can take down Clemson, but not Houston. It'll be Illinois versus Oklahoma State in the Sweet 16. West Virginia versus Houston. Illinois beats Oklahoma State. They're one of the most complete teams out there. They score a lot of points. They've got a big center down low. And then Ayo Desumbo, one of the better players in the nation. I think might be the best player in the nation. Definitely Luka Garza, Jalen Suggs, Ayo Desumbo all have cases. Also Cade Cunningham, he's very good. But they all have cases for being the Wooden Award winner. Desumbo has a broken nose. He's been playing with a mask over his face, but that doesn't seem to affect him. He's been playing very well, and he's been leading this team as they won the Big Ten championship. They passed the ball very well too. So yeah, I've got them advancing to play West Virginia. The number 3 seed beating the number 2 seed, Houston. I think West Virginia and their ceiling of how well they can play, they can definitely take down Houston, who only has 3 losses this season. But I trust West Virginia to win. Illinois versus West Virginia in the Elite 8 in Illinois, just winning the best conference in the nation. Just simply putting it like that, I think Illinois is able to beat West Virginia and move on to the Final Four. Alright, here we are. It's the Final Four. We're going to be looking at the left side of the bracket first. If you've been following along, it'll be right here. We've got number 1, Gonzaga, versus number 2, Alabama. Gonzaga out of the West region. Alabama from the East. 2 seed upsetting Michigan. That's how they got there. Gonzaga kind of cruising their way to the Elite Eight, where they beat Iowa, who's number 2. And yeah, I've got Gonzaga winning this game. Alabama has been a big surprise this season, but this is as far as they go. They make it to the Final Four, their first Final Four ever, and so this should be a good game. But Gonzaga undefeated once they get to this point. They should be 31-0, and Alabama, who does only have 4 losses this season, and the SEC champ, I think, comes up short to Gonzaga, and Gonzaga makes it all the way to the final game for the second time in the last 5 years, and will face off against a Big Ten team. Will it be Ohio State or Illinois? These 2 teams faced off just a couple days ago in the Big Ten tournament. It looked like Illinois was going to run away with it, but Ohio State was able to battle back, made some big shots, and was able to push into overtime, where Illinois kind of controlled the game from there, like what we saw in the first half. And yeah, it's going to be hard to shut down Illinois scoring. They score, and they score a lot. And yeah, just because we've already seen it, Illinois has already beaten Ohio State twice this season, and I think they punched their ticket to the national championship game against the undefeated Gonzaga Bulldogs. It's Illinois versus Gonzaga. If this is the championship game, that'll be so exciting to watch. We've got great players on each side. It'll be Jalen Suggs versus Ayo Dosunmu. You've got Kofi Coburn, one of the greatest centers in the game right now. He's just so physically imposing against this Gonzaga team that's so well built. And here's my pick. I've got the Illinois Fighting Illini winning the national championship game. Big Ten champions, now they're national champions against the undefeated Gonzaga Bulldogs, and cap off the 2021 NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. And that's madness. That's March Madness for you. And I've already submitted this bracket into a couple ESPN leagues, one at my school, a couple with my family, and this is really what I believe is going to turn out. And that's where I'm putting my money. We'll see if it turns out that way. And this has been your A to Z Sports March Madness predictions for 2021. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it. And if you enjoy the channel, make sure to subscribe to AZ Sports. We're almost to 100 subscribers. I think we're sitting at 93 right now. Once we get to 7 subscribers, I'll be doing something. Once we get those 7 more subscribers and get to 100 subs, I'll be doing something special for you guys that you won't want to miss out on. So make sure, if you're not already subscribed, click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of these content. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of AZ Sports.